You're all nice. Hi, I'm Katie Nahab, and I am a storyteller. It's not my job title, right? My job title is Creative Executive of Bug Entertainment. Actually, Creative Executive Consultant. More on that later. But I'm a storyteller, as really all of us are. And it's said that when it comes to storytelling, that there are only two stories. There is the creation story, comedy, or there is a tragedy, the fall. But today's topic is about revival, right? And I would say that actually there's a third story, and that is the revival story. And I say that because you can tell your story as a tragedy, or you can tell your story as a comedy. It all depends on where you end it. And because none of us in here have finished our stories, it's always a revival story. There's always a next opportunity. So I'm gonna go to the next slide here. And because, oh, no wait, I went backwards. Because I couldn't find a picture of me on career day in kindergarten, which is where my story begins. This is me as a lion. I was very good. You can see all of the other kids aren't boring, but I am. See? 1995, I'm 5 years old, and I'm walking to career day with my mom. Over my very fuzzy little tuft of blonde hair, I have a beret, and I'm wearing one of my dad's button-ups with a whole bunch of like crayons and paintbrushes in the pockets. I'm an artist. And I walk up with my mom to class, and I'm so proud, and my teacher looks at me and looks at my mom and says, "Oh, this one's gonna live at home with you forever." And as a 5-year-old, I had no idea what that meant, but I knew something about the tone told me it was bad. Something about what I was wearing, my dream, was wrong, was silly. And it wouldn't be for years before I'd fully understand that. But as I grew up, it was cemented into my brain that choosing to be an artist was a pipe dream, right? And all of us probably in this room have gotten that messaging. By like 8 years old, I would have these like existential crises. And my dad, who's one of the wisest men in the world, indisputably, would just be like, "Kate, an artist is someone who drew today. So I could make another drawing so that I could have said I was an artist that day." By the time I was in 5th grade, 6th grade, a man came to our school. He was the parent of one of the other students. And he came to tell us his story. And his story was that he wanted to be a baseball player. But God had other plans. And the messaging of this story was that, it was a kind of a cautionary tale about pipe dreams and about how God doesn't really care about your wants or interests. He has a plan, and you go with his plan. Now, I'm not saying everyone here is someone who believes in God, but I do, and it's a big part of my story. And I've learned that God writes our story with us, not for us, and we don't write it individually. In my mind, it's a collaboration. And it's really important that when we look at our stories, we see it that way, because the stories we tell ourselves are the most important. For me, the story that I started telling myself at 5 years old was that if I got to be an artist, and what I meant by that was really, if I got to be paid to make art, if I got to do that, it was a comedy. And if I didn't get to do that, it was a tragedy. And I started writing my life around that narrative. So, in the 90s, I was drawing all the time, right? I started coming up with my own cartoon characters. My 6th grade yearbook said my dream was to own my own cartooning business, because I didn't know the word animation. And of course, like every 90s kid, I was obsessed with dolphins. All right. Around 6th grade, I also started begging for art classes. And I ended up getting an absolutely amazing teacher named Nancy Ward, who agreed to teach me at 11 years old. And clearly I had various interests. One is my mom, and the other is some sort of gargoyle dragon creature that is very angsty and reveals my teenage spirit. I graduated high school in 2008. Right on the heels of my acceptance letter to my dream university was the recession. And by January of that year, I had to leave my school. I didn't have to, actually. It was a choice, but I could have taken out a lot more student debt, or I could have decided to go to my parents' alma mater and my sister's alma mater, and a lot of people I knew alma mater, La Sierra University. Small little university in Riverside. Represent! Here. And to be honest, I was extremely disappointed when I first started. I had my attitude firmly adjusted in the teenage angst position. But I ended up finding myself in the art department, largely due to Terrell Thomas, who's here with us today, along with Susan Pat and Tim Musso, extremely supportive teachers who made me feel like I was gonna make it. They created such a community and an environment where I felt like I could learn and grow and experience and try and fail, and they always believed that I was good, which is all what we want to believe when you're in the creative pursuit. So I got to do all kinds of stuff. I did bookmaking and fabric works and drawing and painting and all kinds of crazy life drawing classes. And it was wonderful. And by the time I was a senior, I got to have my own senior exhibition where I had written and illustrated 3 children's books based on my grandmother's childhood, and recorded and produced 2 songs that I got to sing on and work on music with a friend. And I got to set up my own exhibition with balsa wood birds. You'll notice there's a lot of birds in my work. I have no idea why, I just like them. But anyway, they're everywhere. And and everyone got to come and see this. And I also got to be the senior of the year. And I was feeling pretty good about my chances. You know, those people who believed in me. And I applied to Laguna College of Art and Design so that I could become a gallery painter. I wanted to go to their MFA program because I didn't feel like I was quite ready to enter the job market. And so I applied for that, and during my senior of the year, just, you know, presentation, I got Susan Pat reading off all my lofty accomplishments. And all I could think about was the rejection letter that I had gotten in the mail that week. And all I was doing was staring at all the faces, staring back at me and thinking, I'm a fraud. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough because I couldn't even pay someone to make me a better artist. There's no way anyone's gonna pay me to be the artist I am now. If my life was really a story about me getting to be paid to be an artist, and it stopped here, and this is where I decided to end my story today, it would be a tragedy. Or would it? A few more clips from my books. I was very anti-digital art, by the way. Terrell's laughing because he knows. LCAT, Laguna College of Art and Design. So you guys had someone speak here recently.
Yeah, Daniel.
From LCAT. Ah, yeah. So I got rejected. It was the perfect timing, I just had to do it. I got rejected, and but that wasn't the end of my story, because God was writing my story with me. And they offered me an opportunity in their post-baccalaureate program. And I decided to take it. I entered a humbler, probably more teachable me. And I had an amazing experience. I met incredible artists, some of them, you know, into their career and doing wonderful, amazing things, and others who were like 18, fresh out of school, and were like 1,000% better than me. And they kept me humble in the best way possible. And I had the most wonderful time there. And by the end, also the promise of the post-baccalaureate program was that you were pretty much guaranteed to get into the MFA program afterward. And I did. but I turned it down. Plot twist. In the story of me becoming an artist that got paid to be an artist, self-doubt was my greatest villain. And I had many plot twists. And the first one was not getting accepted to LCAD. And then the second was turning down LCAD. I had learned too much about the fine art world and the presentation that you have to be and do and self-marketing you have to do to go into the gallery artist world. And I just felt that it was, number one, way too expensive for me. Number two, and let's just be all honest, it's a bit rigged. It feels rigged, at least. And it wasn't reliable enough for me, what I wanted out of my life and my career. You're like, why did you go into art? There was also the mentor that they were talking about me working with at the time. They showed me this worksheet that was like your entrance, and it was like asking you to focus on the darkest parts of your life. Like did you have any depression? Did you have any anxiety in your family? Do you have mental disorders? That's like all this stuff. And for me, I was like, I go down this path. It might be the easiest way to seek inspiration, but it also might be the easiest way to seek depression for me. And that wasn't for me. So I turned it down. And, like I said, God was writing my story with me, and suddenly an opportunity opened up at La Sierra Academy. I'd worked there as part-time while I was in my undergrad, and whilst the art teacher was on maternity leave. But I finally got to go in as the official art teacher. And aside from teaching the terrifying students, which are middle schoolers, indisputably, that is the scariest job in the world. I got to teach high school as well. And one of my students was Ivan G.
Oh, the best student.
I didn't expect to fall in love with teaching, but it was because of students like Ivan that I did. I was terrified of that phrase, those who cannot do, teach. And there's teachers who are teachers because they should be teachers. And then there's teachers who are teachers because they fell into it because they couldn't keep climbing up. I was afraid I was that teacher. But I ended up loving it. And it was because of students like Ivan, who Ivan I remember as being the student with too much energy, too many ideas, and just too many plans. But like he always came in with these lofty goals and really exciting, and it kept me excited, along with my other students who'd come in with these things that I never thought of. And I was there like showing them the stuff that inspired me, and they would inspire me right back with the stuff that they were making. And I loved it. And I ended up creating an annual student art show in the university's gallery. And we had this amazing show of all of their work that year. And one of my awards that I passed out was called Community Builder. Because the thing that I loved the most in that classroom was the community that formed. I had students who found a home in my classroom that had been kind of outcasts. I had a mom come crying to me at the end of the year telling me about how they found a home there, that they weren't crying before school every day. I had students who just came out of their shell. They had some reason that they were incredibly shy and very embarrassed of taking up space, right? And by the end of the year, they had a whole community and they were loud and it was great. I would have to tell them to be quiet in class. I loved it. Plot twist. I got engaged. It was a good plot twist. But unfortunately, my husband had a very lucrative and successful job in the Bay Area. And while being a teacher, which was still part-time, was great, not quite so lucrative. And while I had planned, my plan during this glorious year of teaching was to teach get my MFA in illustration at Cal State Fullerton. That plan was now gone. I've been thinking about that and working on that outside class. And now I was moving somewhere else and I couldn't apply there. It was before everything was remote. And instead, me and my husband Andrew are up in the Bay Area and I have to make a choice. Now what? So I can apply to get a teaching credential, or I can apply to get an MFA. what's sad is that getting an actual job in the industry just never entered my mind, because the self-doubt that was the villain of my story was continuing to keep me from even considering it, also my clumsiness, as an option. And I was thinking the whole time, ironically, isn't it time to be into my career now? Am I really going to be that person who went to school, got all this debt, and all I really needed to learn was, do you want fries with that? I was terrified. And I loved teaching, but getting my teaching credential was the safe, I'm not going to keep climbing this ladder route. I'm going to exit here. I'm going to take this road. It's clear, it's smooth. I know what I'm going to do if I go with the teaching credential. The other option was getting my MFA, and that had been my goal. I wanted to get the, final terminal degree of whatever I studied. That had always been my goal. And an MFA in illustration was still what I really wanted. But I decided to get the teaching credential for a week. Because God was also writing my story with me, and he was telling me I couldn't stop yet. So I got the MFA. I started going to at the Academy of Art in San Francisco. No, backwards. Oh, I did something fancy. I didn't mean to. Ooh, look at that. Oh, no. Wait, we're going back. Okay, so I went to get my MFA, and I started off in illustration, and I loved illustration. I actually had to start learning how to digital paint because I had refused, because I was super stubborn and I was super elitist, I guess. I don't know. I was like, giving in to the man if I start working digitally. You all laugh because you're just like, what the crap? Yeah. By my senior year, I was working on my own 2D animated art of book. And that art of book was for a story called The Moon Riders. It was a mountain of work. I actually have the book in my car, but it was a mountain of work. It was like every single character, multiple turnarounds, props, characters, environments, because I switched. I started in illustration. I only lasted in that for 1 quarter before I saw this presentation by Blue Sky. And Blue Sky was talking about visual development, which, if you're not familiar with that term, it's the concept art before the movie. It's the storytelling in the props, in the characters, in the environments, and making sure it all is cohesive and that it's all believable and that it can live in a 3D space or 2D space. Mine was a little bit mixed. I loved every minute of it. And when it came to my final exhibition, I had to go in front of, the main professors for my thesis project and talk about it, and they loved it. They told me they'd give me glowing recommendations. I wasn't the best artist they'd ever seen or anything, but I was good. And I was good at storytelling, and I was a good student. My work ethic had proven me through. I could have flown to the career services office to talk about my resume. I could have floated up to the moon myself, and I was like so proud walking down the streets of San Francisco down to the career service office. I walk in there thinking like, hey, I got the back, like the university director liked my work. And I go in there and I sit there and I start off so confident. And the career services person that I'm speaking to says, you're never gonna make it in the industry. She said, your work is too pretty and it's too old-fashioned. Everything is edgy now. That's what people want. You'll never make it. You should go get your teaching credential. If this were the story of me getting to be an artist, getting to get paid to be an artist, this would have been a tragedy. It was the climax, actually, of that story. And then I entered into this waking and very common nightmare of applying to jobs. Anything with art in the title. I was so desperate. And looming in the distance were Starbucks applications for when all of the art applications just fell through. I applied to hundreds of jobs, rewrote my resume, rewrote my cover letter, reorganized my portfolio, put in new things to my portfolio. I applied to illustration, like publishing houses and agencies, applied to contests. One of them was this. I just like this one, so I put it in. But Alice in Wonderland kindergarten, right? Kind of converted the story into kindergarten setting. And I worked on all this stuff and I got nothing. After all of it, I had 4 callbacks. Some of them just wouldn't work out. One of them was for animation. It was a concept art internship at Treasure Studios in Irvine, California. And it was for this very small show, CoComelon. It was only on YouTube and didn't have any merchandising. This is 2019. And it wasn't Pixar, it wasn't Disney, but I was thrilled. It was the most exciting thing. I rearranged my entire living room so that it looked very smart with my bookshelves behind me, and I had every single resource, and believe me, I was over-prepared. I had done pretend interviews with myself. And I'd written out my responses, and I had all of my artwork sitting on this table behind my laptop, and I dressed head to heel, in heels, for a virtual interview with Jay Jiang, the founder of CoComelon, who was having his dishwasher fixed during our interview. It was the most informal interview you can imagine. It was like, what music do you like to listen to? What movies do you like? And, oh, you sing at your church? What's that like? And just talking about anything in between him having to go talk to the, dishwasher repairman. And by the end of the interview, he said, well, I see you applied for an internship, but would you be interested in a full-time job? It's like I had to like hold myself back from just like shrieking, like, yes! He asked, would it be okay if I gave you a few different titles? And I still had to like hold myself back. I'm like, yes! So I accepted. Big shot. Actually, what I should have said it in like this, but I declined it. I started working for CoComelon. If you're not familiar with CoComelon, CoComelon is a global edutainment, education and entertainment brand about a little toddler named JJ and his family and friends and his experiences. And it's really for like 0 to 3. So it's not meant for like the Pixar enthusiasts where, it's not like that. It's really meant to like teach little ones about language building through nursery rhymes and about your first time going to the doctor's office or these kinds of things. And it was amazing. CoComelon has been an amazing teacher. I think of myself as a lifelong student, and it's taught me so much. I'm going to name 5 things that it's taught me. And the first was that my first assignment on CoComelon, I was living up in the Bay Area and I had to move to Southern California, and my first assignment was remote. So all Jay Jiang told me was, watch as much CoComelon as you can.
Oh God, oh God.
For all the parents out there who thought they knew CoComelon and that the songs got stuck in their heads and it drove them crazy, you don't know what you're talking about. 30 hours in 1 week. I think I hold the record for the most CoComelon consumed in a week. I dare any toddler to they can't top that. 30 hours. And it was great. It was the best, like the most productive thing I could have done for my job, the best homework. It, in fact, taught me my first and biggest lesson, which is 90% of being good at your job is just doing the homework. Being a good student is the best preparation for being a good employee, for being a good business owner, actually. So many people don't finish things. Be the person that finishes things, and you will do well. My second lesson, my first day on the job, or my first time on the job where I actually got to make something, when I finally got to design something, was for that little, do you see the xylophone in the bottom left corner? It's for music song. And we needed to design an upright xylophone that the teacher could, work on, and then like little flat ones that the kids could work on. And I started designing it. I was taking into account the classroom design, what the set looked like and all that. And Jay Cheon walks by my desk and he looks at me and goes, "Why would you make something ugly for my show?" I was terrified. But I was also so excited just to be there that I wasn't gonna let that get in the way. And so I pestered them with questions. Okay, let's talk about, X, Y, Z and try to understand what's behind the note. In 20 minutes, I had redrawn, 20 different little drawings, and one of them went to screen. I figured it out. And it was a huge lesson for me, which was, number 2, listen to people who don't like what you're doing. Look for the note behind the note. They're not wrong. They just might be saying it wrong. Don't let that get in the way of what you know how to do. Lesson number 3. CoComelon was a small studio. We were 15 people, a lot of us fresh out of school when we started. We'd spend our 15-minute breaks together, getting coffee, or literally doing stretches, because we learned that was healthy. And on Wednesdays, we'd go to get Japanese curry at Koko Ichiban. And it was lovely. And then we were acquired by Moonbug Entertainment in 2020 during the pandemic, and everything shifted. And now we were part of this bigger company. And I've been at CoComelon now for about a little over 6 years. And I've watched CoComelon be a team of 15 and everything being internal to be hundreds of people, and with a marketing team and all these other things, and working with external studios, and to a smaller team with external studios. And I've watched through all of that. And the thing I've learned, lesson number 3, is about being patient. Things are going to change. There's AI coming for us all, right? There's a lot of changes that come to everyone's jobs. And if you panic at the first sight of something new that you don't understand, you're going to psych yourself out. And you are better than that. So be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with the company. Be patient with your coworkers. Be patient. And just have integrity. At each step, make the choice that you believe is the right one, not the one that makes you feel a little better in that moment, and you won't let regret catch you. I got to work on so many cool things at CoComelon, and the biggest thing that I have learned through my experience there is that getting paid to be an artist is not my story. In 2021, I was approached, we'd been acquired and we'd been functioning for a while, but we'd lost a lot of people even before we were acquired. And I had my hands in all these different pots. Oh, I forgot to mention. So when I got hired, my job title was not just art director. I was art director, writer, and audio producer. Was I, should I have had those job titles?
No.
No. I got these jobs out of the personal work that I'd done outside of work. I got it from my undergraduate program where I'd written 2 songs for my gallery exhibition. He thought I could be a writer. Writer really meant lyricist at the time. We didn't actually have scripts. We were a small team that just worked together and came up with stories together. In 2021, my job title shifted again, and this time it was the question of, do I want to stay an art director, or do I want to become a creative executive? A job title I'd never even thought about, never considered. Didn't really know what it meant, to be honest. And it was the first time in my life that I decided to tell myself a different story. The story of not Katie getting to be an artist, getting to be paid, deciding my worth by whether or not I was paid to do what I already loved to do, but rather that I was something more. That being just an artist, getting paid to be an artist, wasn't enough anymore for me. And CoComelon taught me that I wanted more. And that's when I started thinking of myself as a storyteller. Because as the creative executive, I really started looking at the whole picture. I was looking at the animatics, I was looking at the storyboards, I was looking at all this other stuff. I got to take part in doing lots of drawing to get paid. I got to help even with storyboards before we had board artists. I was doing a lot of them. And so storyboards for Jello Color Song, Gardening Song. I did more for You Can Ride a Bike, things like that. I got to help design characters like Cody's cat Pickles and Jellybean, the class pet, and the Baby Shark Submarine. And these are just a few of the fun ones that I was able to find references of in my portfolio. Some of them I just haven't kept track of. And it was amazing, but it wasn't enough. Lesson number 4. Your story is so much more comprehensive than what you get paid to do. I got hired to do things that how do I put this? I wrote it all out before this. I got hired to make this stuff. But what got me the job was actually the collection of things that I'd randomly done throughout my life. And so many random things were put into play. I got to be the tap sounds behind the tap dancing song. Because I tap danced in 8th grade, and I had my tap shoes still, and they still fit because I'm tiny. And I got to be the roars, my claim to fame. Wait, I want to go back. The dinosaurs episode right there, if you listen to that and you hear, that's me. Yeah. I got to sub in for the teacher when she couldn't come in to do a line or something. I would sub in. I'm also the grandma. Yeah, that was fun. I got to write songs. The belly button song, which has like recently become really like a viral thing. I got to write that. I'm not actually like in the music department, but I've gotten to dabble because over the years we had music director. We didn't, we all kind of wore different hats. I actually got to help with the first JJ doll with the design because his eyebrows were all weird and his chin was in the wrong place, and so I got to help fix that. My final spin-off that I got to work on, because I got to work on a lot of different spin-offs over the years, was called Madeline. She is the most incredible spin-off creative adventure I've ever been on. And it taught me, I don't get paid, by the way, to do that. That's the like ultimate creative pursuit. Way more than anything I've gotten to do at CocoMelon is what I get to do with her every single day. So that's lesson number 5 in a weird and very hard to remember, long-winded way. But my dad was right. An artist is someone who drew today. An artist is someone who created today or did whatever it is that you do in your creative pursuits. Getting paid to do it, it's cool, but it's not everything. It's not what makes you who you are. It's not your life story. Your purpose is so much bigger than that. And I guess it took me like 30 years, I'm 35, 30 years to figure that out. Thank you very much.